This is an 8-iron, and it's a dead shank.
Wow.
Way right.
Oh, takes a hop
shank.
off the pad.
You got to be kidding me. Very tough pitch shot right here. You got to hit it into the hill. One hop up and bite, and it's in.
Kind of like that.
Well, I would like to welcome Bernie Garsen to the Sub 70 podcast. Bernie, it's been looking forward to this because you've been on a hell of a run with this product. You're definitely making your mark in the golf industry, and congratulations on all of that. Like, this is going to be a fun conversation of that journey and how you've kind of gotten, Garsen to be in the mainstream conversation, in our industry. So congrats on that, and we're looking forward to the conversation on our side here.
Well, Jason, thanks a lot for having me on. I'm really excited to be here with you this morning. And, it's been quite a run the last month or so, actually. It's been really exciting.
Tony Finau, right? Like, you always have seen the talent, the ball striking and kind of putting it all together, which is hard. It's really hard to win on tour, but, what a run he has been on. And I know you know him well. What have you sort of seen from him of, how he has, those 2 weeks in a row and, he's going to be on the President's Cup team and this sort of, for lack of a better word, excellence that he's shown this season? What's the difference?
Well, it was really funny. After his first win, I was up at Detroit and I was talking with Tony, and Tony's just got the most laid back attitude that you couldn't even believe as a tour player. His mood never changes. I mean, you don't see him on the golf course, getting upset about anything. He's kind of like a Lydia Ko, who's always smiling and always happy on the LPGA tour. But with talking with Tony that week in Detroit on the putting green, it was kind of funny. My last words to him is that let's make it a back-to-back win. And he kind of laughs, sure, let's do it. And he goes out and does it, so it was kind of, maybe I should travel every week on the PGA Tour and say, come on, let's win again. But, I'm really excited because all three of Tony's wins have been in the Garsen grip. The first win in Puerto Rico was with the Max 15-inch grip, which I designed for him, especially because of his bigger hands. And then, he's tried the quad non-taper. He putted well with that grip for a little while, but he's just really adapted to the ultimate grip with his grip style, which basically, as you know as well as I do, the ultimate allows you to basically place your hands in any type of position you like and kind of create your own putting grip.
Is there more and more pros starting to adapt or adopt the grip at this point? Like, once they see the success of Tony or other guys that you're working with, is it sort of like a virus in a good way where they see it, they come talk to you? Is it starting to really get momentum from that direction? If so, like, what other pros are you kind of working with at this point?
Well, I travel on the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour, and the Korn Ferry Tour is kind of like the stepping ground coming up to the PGA Tour, and the guys out there are really in tune to seeing what other players are doing. Like Carl Yuan, who's currently number one list on the money list on the Korn Ferry Tour, is in the Max grip, and I went out to Louisiana the week after he had won with the Max grip, and just that week alone, I had three of the other Asian players, put the putter in play. And it's just a constant thing out there. The more people see, the more they want to try and also adapt to something new. The PGA Tour, it happens, but not quite as oftenly as on the Korn Ferry. There's so much more involved out on the PGA Tour when you got to deal with the players' coaches and their agents, and just a lot. There's a lot going on out on tour.
How did you start working with our guy, Zach Fisher? How did that relationship come about? And I don't know if there's a better human being in professional golf than Zach. We're so proud of what he's done this year to get through Q School, get his card for next year on Korn Ferry. Step one is done, and he's competing to get his PGA Tour card here in the final event. So great story and better human being. And, how'd you start working with him?
Oh, Zach is the greatest guy. The funny story there was he was playing with Jared Wolf many years ago. I don't know if it's the Bahamas or somewhere, and Jared got a little bit upset after the end of the round and kind of tossed his putter and threw it up against a tree. And Zach, I guess, picked up Jared said, "Do you want the putter?" And Zach said, "Sure." He took it, and I guess he had the putter straightened, and he's been playing that same putter ever since. Probably 2-3 years now, from what I recall. And just from after him winning Q School, I reached out to him, "Hey, Zach, I'm really proud of what you've accomplished. I'm here for you if there's anything you ever need. So I sent him some grips. And then in the mid-season on the Corn Ferry Tour, I went out on tour and I met with him. And just week by week that I'm out there, I've gotten to know him more and more. And I'm sure you've known, probably seen the custom grip that I've done for him with his custom logo on it and the tennis colors. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I love working with Zach. And like I said, we always, you and I are just, they're the talent, but we're like the small portion behind it to try to give them all the ammunition they need to compete out there, right? Like, I wish I was good enough to play, professionally. I never will be. So that's like as close as I can get to it. Such a rewarding feeling, isn't it, to kind of help those guys and see them succeed and kind of watch them live their dream.
Well, not only that, but to actually, like, now, I remember when I started the company and I was kind of like, I would just love for one guy to put my grip in play. But now to see the Garsen brand on TV weekly, up on the leaderboard, up in the top of the leaderboard is kind of a thrill, not just on, like I say, on the PGA Tour, the Corn Ferry Tour, LPGA Tour, it's exciting.
Well, you've had a really interesting background outside of golf, and then we'll get to the technology of how the Garsen grip came about and that process. But like, I know you did modeling in Europe in the late 80s and in the 90s. Like, what an interesting story. Like, how did that come about? How much fun was it? And is there any good stories you can share about kind of doing something, that's definitely different but exciting?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of exciting moments. There were a lot of moments like, you're kind of just saying, what am I doing in this business? But yeah, it was quite a ride. I actually never expected it to last as long as it did and have the career that I actually did have doing it. I started off in LA doing some small things and things like that. Then a friend of mine was living over in Europe, said you should come over to Europe and give Europe a try. So, I packed up my bags and decided to go to Europe and landed in Barcelona. And the next thing I know, I'm traveling throughout Europe, Italy, Germany, France, Greece, Spain. I lived in South Africa for a year and just, did tons of work, over 300 TV commercials over there. Just really was great to see the world and actually make a living at it at the same time, to be honest with you.
Was there some brands that you were associated with that you did a lot of work for during that period?
Well, I based myself mainly in Barcelona and Greece because I traveled back and forth to those countries there because I worked so well in both of those because I guess I had that, Hispanic look because I am Hispanic but the Greek look as well. But I Leche Pascual, Corte Inglés. In Greece, I did stuff for the leading brands of cigarettes, Assos. I did for Corona Pasta, for Nescafe, for, you name it. I pretty much had done everything there. I was on billboards, so it was pretty interesting, getting a taxi and the cab driver kind of like staring at me, drive by a billboard and kind of like pointing, oh, that's you. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, it was pretty exciting to be actually recognized that much when you're just, in a public place.
I love the irony of you're probably working out like crazy, eating super healthy to stay in shape, and then they have you do a cigarette ad. That's got to be the irony of that one, right?
Yeah, because there was a lot involved in it. You definitely had to take care of yourself. You definitely had to stay in shape because you never knew when they're going to want you to pull your shirt off. And it was really funny. There was one time I got booked for a Japanese client off my comp card. And when we went to do the shoot, they're like, oh, you're much bigger than you look. So they actually had to cut all the backs of the shirts out and tape them together so it kind of looked like it fit me.
Yeah, had to adapt and move.
Yeah, and then there's doing stuff in bathing suits in the middle of winter and it's freezing cold. It was just, you had to adapt to whatever the scenario was and, be ready to go. Then after.
If they want you to look like the Marble Man, you just adapted to it, lit up a cigarette, and said, "Sure, I'll hold this thing for you," right? Whatever it took.
Yeah, that was it. There was actual times of doing a commercial shoot in Greece where we were at the bar and kind of like pretending like we're not out of the night having fun. They're like the whole time giving us drinks. So before you know it, we're just having fun. We were hammered at the same time. Oh yeah.
Well, it looked natural then. So you do this, and then how the hell do you go from that to getting back in the golf business?
Well, I moved back to Miami in '97, and I worked quite well here because of all the cruise industries and all the other work here. Was doing a lot of cruise line videos and commercials and catalog shoots and just everything here. Then after 9/11, the modeling industry kind of died. So I went to work out at Doral, and within 3 months, I was running all the outside golf operation services. And I'm figuring, well, I'm here back because I played golf when I was younger, and then I was kind of like got injured, and that's what, I just kind of like stopped doing that and went to other things. But once I got back to work at Doral, I just started playing golf again. And being in the outside golf service, it was really funny because I was always trying to make things better, to make the daily business function more. But then also I started talking with customers and had issues with losing their shoes or losing their golf clubs. And I was always trying to think of a way to do something to benefit golfers. And, I did a couple little products. I did a little strap for a glove. I did a thing for a shoe holder or your golf bag, kind of like experimental stuff. I actually produced some product. I applied for the patents on one of them, received the patent. But then it was like, if you're really going to do something in this golf world, it's not going to be from accessory. So that kind of led into, I left Doral. I started work on Fisher Island. And within time, I became an assistant pro there. And through teaching, I just kind of like really was paying attention to people's setup issues with putting, their breakdown issues from body manipulation. And I always putted as a kid with my thumbs down the side of the putter grip, right on the two ridges. So trying to incorporate that in teaching, people are like, I understand what you're going for, but it's not comfortable. There's no place for me to rest my thumbs in a comfortable position. So I went home one night and I cut apart 3 grips and glued them together with shoe glue and came up with the original edge shape. And that's pretty much where that started. And within a month, I was on a plane. I was headed over to China to work to find factories, find manufacturing, and, that was a chore. I went through 5 factories in my first year. And then through the process of the USGA, it was 2 years, 7 different submissions. So it's quite a journey that people don't really realize to actually, develop and present a product, which I'm sure you know about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's it's a lot of just to, to get it to where you want. It's a lot of behind the scenes work, right? No, but that's the goal. We want it to look simple, like here it is, but there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
When you prototyped the grip, when that kind of like homemade the first version, and you gave it to customers, and was there like an initial like light bulb going on, like, okay, this feels better, or you saw improvement? Like, were you really encouraged pretty quickly that this is the right path for you?
Well, I you know what? It's what I thought was, wow, this is the best thing ever. I knew that in my mind, but you know what? It's like I knew I had something good, but I really didn't realize how good it was, to be honest with you, because I was actually what happened was like, I put it on a putter, and obviously it fell apart because it was glued together with shoe glue. So the solvent ate right through the shoe glue. So I had to actually tape it onto the putter. So after I got the initial feedback from people and everything, I knew I had a product. So that's like I said, I went to China and I got samples. And so when I first put the original samples on a putter and was playing, I met these 2 older gentlemen that were playing golf, and they told me, wow, you should come and see our instructor and talk to him about your putter grip. It's really cool. So I went and I met with this gentleman here in Miami. He was more than an instructor. He was also like more of a fitness guy and worked on body mechanics and everything else involved in the golf swing. So when I showed him my putter grip, he kind of laughed at me. I said, you find something funny here? And he says, well, to be honest with you, I don't think you really realize what you've created. Obviously, it feels good, but let me explain to you what it's actually doing to the body position, which I kind of like from the flaws, what I saw in people's putting, I was kind of going after that aspect, but I hadn't been able to actually test it in a proper way with all the data testing and certain, types of testing they were doing with their in the business now. This was probably more than 10 years ago when this first started, when I first had my first prototypes. So now we evolved a long way now with everything, the SAM Lab and all the other kinetic systems and everything else that's out there in putting, the blast motions. There's so many things adaptable for data testing now. It's incredible.
So, in a nutshell, like, what makes it, like on the simplest terms, like for somebody listening to this, like what makes it better? Like, so now you can study all the biomechanics, you can study the stroke, how it improves with your grip. And, full disclosure, we sell the grip, on Sub 70. We like the product along with other grips, but it's a really good product. It really is. Like, we believe in it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it on our website. But like, what's the basic, fundamental of why you see improvement with your technology?
Well, basically, I think 56 tour wins also stands for a lot to say about my product.
Absolutely.
So basically, the whole premise around the Garsen grips, like I said, it all started with the Maxes, which is the two flat sides on the side. So what that is actually doing is getting your body into a more natural position. What I mean is it's like getting your hands more open side to side, and it's actually tucking your elbows into your body, really, really locking your wrist into the stroke and setting the shoulders back, allowing the bigger muscles to be used more consistently. But when you're adding manipulation to your putting stroke, you know what it's going to do. And to try and repeat that every time, it becomes more difficult. The grips actually allow you to create a more repetitive, natural putting stroke, which will in turn lead to be more consistent putter.
And is that what you see, especially with amateur players, a lot is way more use of hands versus the big muscles and kind of, I always think like, in my mind, I want to putt it like Steve Stricker, where it's just, no hand manipulation, rock the shoulders. Does the grip make that professional motion a little easier?
Oh, and definitely does. And the thing what makes it easier, like I say, it really helps you get into the same position every time, which is the key to putting. I mean, if you're not set up properly from the get-go, you good luck. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Well, yeah, the grips just really help you benefit in everything from setup to body positioning to less tension in your stroke, more repetitive, more consistent putting stroke.
So you've got this product, and now we're going to take this thing on the road. So you're going to go to the big leagues. You're out in the PGA Tour. How long does it take, or what's that process for a tour player to see you enough times out there to go, hey, what do you got here? Like, how did that process work to get in some tour players' hands? And maybe, like, who were some of the first couple tour pros that, put it in play and were successful with it, as early adapters?
Well, being out on the PGA Tour, it's like after now being out there 7 years, it's a big family. It's a lot of trust you build with players and coaches and just all the other reps and everything else. But, I mean, literally, I was probably out on the PGA Tour for a good 3 months before I really started getting any recognition, before anybody really wanted to come by and spend any amount of time with me. And one of the first that really came by and took some interest. I mean, granted, a lot of guys stopped by, looked at it, but because of the different shape, wouldn't even ask me anything about it. It's kind of like, wow, this thing's different, and would throw it back on the golf bag. So I was down in Phoenix at the Waste Management Open, and J.B. Holmes came by, and these were his exact words. He put it in his hands and threw it back in the bag. He says, "What the hell is this thing? Is that on crooked, or what's wrong with it?" And I kind of laughed. I said, "JB, can I explain it?" He goes, "Sure, go ahead." I said, "Well, first of all, how's your putting been lately?" And he kind of laughed. He goes, "Well, you got me there." And I said, "Well, do me a favor. Let me explain it to you. Put your hands on it and putt with it about 5 minutes. Tell me how you feel." So we putted, and he goes, "Yeah, it feels a little different, but actually it feels pretty good." I said, "Well, Howard Twitty was over on the other side of the putting green. He had a Sam Lab out there. And I told JB, go over and have your stats checked through Howard." Within 5 minutes, his caddy walked back and said, "Give us a head cut for that player. It's going in play this week. His stats have never been that good." And that's basically my whole concept is give it 10 minutes. It's going to feel a little different in the beginning, but after 10 minutes, we were all taught how to putt one way. Nobody said it was right or wrong. What is right? Basically, putting is all technique. It's all. So I think once you get used to the feel, the technique is just going to become more natural. And then, J.B. Holmes, went on to be successful with the grip, won 3 times with it within 2 years. Jim Ferrick put it in play for a while. And then, the claim to fame was Henrik Stenson putting it in play and winning the British Open with it. And that's really when the company became recognized as a legit competitor out on the tour. And I think people really start taking it a lot more seriously, to be honest with you.
Could you even watch that final round between that show between him and Mickelson? How I mean, you knew he was playing the grip. How nervous were you?
I mean, nervous isn't the word, because I know Hendrick had great success with that grip and, finished second I don't know how many times. He and Tony both have probably had more second place finishes combined than, pretty much the whole anybody else on tour, to be honest with you. And it was just always so frustrating because, nobody really cares about second place.
You got to win.
If you've got to win. My wife couldn't understand, but honey, you've got to. They took second. I said, honey, I'm very happy, but the recognition doesn't come unless it's a tour win. You can't count second places, or for your own gratification, you can, knowing that it's successful, but it's not something that you want to be known as, oh, great, I've got a great company that my players are coming in second place every week.
That might have been one of the greatest final rounds in major championship history of that battle between those two, right? Like, that was phenomenal golf. I
mean, to have seen that and witnessed it it brought tears in my eyes. It was just like I still remember it. It was just like so emotional because it's like, wow, it's like I really am now a legit recognized company, and this really put me on the map.
Yeah, and he played. I mean, he made a lot of good. Well, they both did, but Stenson putted unbelievably good that day. Everyone he needed, he made.
Oh, yeah, and then make the birdie on the last hole is even just to top it off.
Exactly. Well, that's a great win, man. And my favorite tournament of the world, right? If you gave me one, I would take that one. Give me an
I far. And then to Tony's first win at the Puerto Rico Open, winning in the playoff, and then how many other times did Tony get into playoffs and not pull it off? I mean, people are always beginning to talk about Tony like he can't finish off a Sunday, but I think that issue is done. I think we've seen that.
Yeah, I think, yes, right? I mean, it's big step forwards, right? To go back, it's so hard to win. Then to go back-to-back like that and finish him off, it's huge for him. It really is.
Yep.
I know you do some coaching as well with some of the tour guys. How, you have the grip product, right? And then was it kind of, with your background in the PGA, was it kind of a natural extension for when the guys come to you a little bit and you can still analyze a putting stroke pretty well, especially with your grip on it, and say, yeah, let me see if I can help you here and put a set of eyes on it? Was that just sort of a natural progression of what you were doing?
It all kind of really led that way, mainly out on the Korn Ferry Tour, because, a lot of those guys, most of them don't work with coaches, or the ones that, only the ones that are really top echelon that are making money or have family background with money are the ones that can really afford the coaching and stuff like that. So a lot of guys out there are kind of like homemade swings, homemade putting styles, and everything else. And once I get the guy into play, I kind of like, once I give them the basic rundown of how to like, grip the grip, hold, putt with the grip, what it's doing to your body, they'll call me and say, yeah, Bernie, you coming out this week because I'd really like for you to like kind of watch my stroke and maybe help me a bit. And so it's become now a little bit more every time I go out there. Guys were telling me, I wish you were out here every week because like, it really benefits you being here to like help me out a little bit. Because, I mean, there's so much going on week to week out on the tour to try and keep track of, your putting stroke, your swing, your this, all the tension, all the pressure, especially when you're, fighting to get a PGA Tour card. Towards that end of the year, it's insane the amount of pressure that's on these guys. This life game.
Yeah, can you see it though now? Like the more you've done it, is your eye getting better and better and better of fixing it or helping a guy out? Like, is it just the experience that you have with it now? Can you diagnose the problem pretty quick and get them to get the proper stroke pretty quick with the experience you have?
Yes, very much so. I mean, it's funny is I've taken money from tour players. I mean, everybody asks who's the best putter on a tour. People will say Bernie. I mean, it's really funny because they're all like, yeah, there's nobody that puts better than Bernie out here. I mean, I'm out on the putting green all day long. Of course, I'm going to putt. And it's also making me look good because guys say, damn, you can putt. So it's got nothing to do with me, man. It's the grip. It's the grip that becomes such a putter. And, yeah, tour players, I've taken hundreds of dollars from players, other reps, and guys know now don't even try to putt against Bernie. Because, there's times I'll be out there. I remember when Blast was out there with the Blast Motion, and the gentleman who was repping the product was watching me putt. He was telling me, how do you make so many putts when your stroke, to me, doesn't even look that good? I said, what do you mean it doesn't look that good? I said, okay, fine, because out there just playing around. So when he put me on the blast motion, he was kind of like, wow, your stroke is like incredible. And I said, I'll tell you what, it's not my stroke. I said, let's get an average player out here, a tour player, and we'll show him the benefits of what his putting stroke is with his grip, and we'll put him in a Garsen grip, and we'll check the numbers. 99.9% of the guys that did this test actually ended up putting better, and probably most of them are still in the Garsen grip. See the numbers, because the numbers don't lie.
Right. But you can, as a former PGA pro, you can also put the grip on, and I guess the question I'm asking is like, your eye is probably better than ever from the experience on both sides of that, of teaching and the grip technology to coach, right? Like you can kind of look at someone's stroke, I'm guessing, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but look at it pretty quick and go, let's think about this, and sync it up, for lack of a better word.
Well, as much time as I spend on the putting green, I analyze a lot of guys, but I'm not going to walk up to a PGA Tour player and tell him, you know what, I think this is wrong with your stroke.
No. If they ask you for help.
Right. If they ask me, definitely, because the whole thing with a PGA Tour coach out there. I mean, a lot of coaches I know might not believe in my philosophy or my whole deal with what the putting grip is doing. Everybody has their own little niche of what they're trying to teach or why they think their technique is better. I mean, nothing to put Stockton down, but his whole thing was the forward press.
Right.
And I know that that I did talk to Stockton before, and he was like telling me, well, your grip doesn't fit into my teaching philosophy, and there's other coaches out there that I know have told me that, well, what I'm teaching, it doesn't work for my player. I mean, that's what I'm talking about with all the politics out there. But to me, I mean, the coaches like Pete Cowan, who's, the main reason why I got in Henrik Stenson's hands, I mean, he's a firm believer in my grip. Phil Kenyon also is a big believer in my grip. I mean, Phil told me, he goes, your grip is so good, my own mother uses it. So, yeah, I mean, the Mike Shannon is the very first putting coach I met out there. And Mike Shannon to this day still swears that I have the best product out on tour.
Well, I was going to ask you about Pete Cowan too, because I'm fascinated of his success. It's like him and Butch Harmon. It's like you've gotten to be, I know you've become close to Pete. Like what makes him get the most out of the guys he works with? Because he doesn't make them all swing the same way, right? But like, what is his... Is he is it half a mental coach? Obviously, is he really good at just subtly, helping guys with the golf swing? Like, what is his secret that it works if you work with Pete Cowan on a professional level?
I think what really is important as coach is your player has to believe in what you're teaching. I mean, if the player is not happy and satisfied, I think a lot of, like you say, is mental as well. With the player being able to relate to the coach and the coach being able to get things across, to get into the guy's head that, listen, what I'm teaching you is working. I mean, because there are times when I talk with Pete and I say, how's Henrik doing this week? He goes, his head's just not into it. I mean, when they can see that and be able to, pinpoint that in the player and to get the player back to where their head needs to be, I mean, that whole thing for a guy to go out there and play for 4 days, you've got to be in a zone. You can't have any distractions. You can't have any doubts in your putting stroke, in your golf swing. If you're doubting, that's one thing that's just going to stay with you, and it's just not going to help at all, if you ask me.
Because Pete also played the European Tour, right? Like he was a high-level player.
Yeah, Pete was a very, very player, exactly. And I think just because of his success, guys do trust that. I mean, compared to other coaches, it's like, okay, if you can't hit a golf ball, who's going to believe you're a good putting coach or you're a good swing coach? If you're not a good putter, why should somebody put their trust in you as a putting coach?
Yeah, I always said I could probably help Butch so much that people think of him as a great teacher, which he is, but he was a tour player and won on the PGA Tour, right? Like
Definitely.
I mean, so when he's talking to his guys on what's it take on a Sunday or what's that lifestyle, I mean, he lived it and did it and succeeded out there. the highest
Right.
level. So, boy, and I know Pete played the European. That's what I thought. He played very high in the level of golf on the European Tour for years. Like, there's still a credibility to that, right? That he understands the other side of playing professional golf at the highest level, and he's done it.
Exactly.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, expand on that, please. I think it's fascinating. Like I said,
That's why I think a lot of players believe in Pete. He's been successful in his career. A lot of guys that he coaches have been successful. So I think players do look at that as well. Like, who's working with this guy? Pete has worked with probably every European player out there. I know, and also America. I know relationships don't last forever. People have fallings out, and they want to try something different. Doesn't mean that it's because he was a bad coach.
Right. Well, they seem to have a good relationship post even working with him, from what you kind of read and see.
Right. But as I said, if you look at the success all his players have had, it's obviously he's got to be doing something correct. I
agree. It's like him and Butch Harmon. Like, what in the hell is that? I mean, those guys are so good at getting the most out of their guys. They just are. It's fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at some of the best players out there. Tiger Woods, who was his coach? Harmon.
Yeah.
So in Stenson, major winner. Pete Cowan.
Right.
I mean, I know Pete worked with Matt Fitzpatrick. I know Pete's worked with Rory. He's worked with everybody. So everybody, I think, trusts Pete enough to know that he knows what he's doing out there.
Absolutely. New products. Where is there anything, without giving too much away, of what you're thinking of? Some new ideas, new concepts, and would you ever consider doing a swinging grip as well, from just your experience of being out there on tour and all that stuff? Would that be an expansion that we might see from Garsen?
So going back to new innovations and the designs, we've been speaking mainly about the Max grip. So after being out on tour for a few years and talking with players, that were telling me, I understand what your concept is, what you're going for here, but I'm too traditional to even ever think about getting in that position. Which, as I say, you give yourself 5-10 minutes in a Max grip, you're going to be amazed what the feeling is, the sensation is going to be given in your putting stroke, and just how much better it's become. So from that, the thought came to my mind, well, how do I make a more traditional grip with the same benefits? So every time I come up with a concept or design, I did do a little bit of talking with Mike Shannon, and I showed him some prototypes, and he was like, well, this is great. What are you thinking about? You definitely should be doing this. So the quad line was developed with the same philosophy as the Max. It's the same exact technology, the same innovation, that is putting your hands in the proper position every time. It's getting your wrists locked in. It's getting your elbows in your body and your shoulders back in the proper position, creating the more consistent putting stroke. So, as I said, now I have 7 different designs total in my grips. I'm actually now working on 2 more designs that I'm in the process of working with China on. So I just want to keep on innovating and keep on seeing how far I can push the needle. And basically, my whole goal is to become the number 1 putter grip out on tour and the number 1 putter grip in the world. And it's been an uphill battle, but it's been a battle that, I'm going to keep going until I reach the top, and I know I will.
Well, I've got some quick hitters here at the end for you, since you're traveling all over the place. What's some of the best cities on tour, like, people might not think of, right? Like, of course, Boston's a great city, or New York, whatever. But is there some cities that you were even surprised how great the culture is, the food, the tournament, all of that stuff? Like, is there some places you've really enjoyed visiting that you may have not, had on your radar?
Well, traveling every week, we do go to a lot of cities where, maybe Applebee's is your best restaurant in town, to be honest with you. Mainly a lot on the Corn Ferry Tour as well. But, as far as the PGA Tour goes, pretty much every stop is in a big city or close to a big city. But I will say one of my favorite places probably is for the food as well is Louisiana. Right down there in New Orleans. I couldn't imagine being there in the middle of Mardi Gras, but New Orleans is a great city. I mean, Vegas actually has a lot of great restaurants as well. Once you get away from the Strip and you talk to the locals there, I mean, there's incredible sushi in Las Vegas, believe it or not. which you'd almost be afraid to think about eating sushi in a desert city. But no. But probably my most favorite place, let me think. Actually, I really enjoy going down to Playa del Carmen for the tour down during the fall series, because it's basically, after the long road on tour for the year, it's kind of like your little vacation stop where you can actually, like, you staying right there on the beach, the beautiful scenery. I really enjoy Mexican food, so the Mexican food is right next, every restaurant next to it that has Mexican food. So I would say Playa del Carmen is really a great spot, and it's so close for me living in Miami. It's only an hour and a half flight away, which is a direct flight now, which is very hard to come by flying with the airline. So it's a lot of fun.
What tour event on the big tour has just the best atmosphere for the fans, in your opinion?
Well, it's got to be the Waste Management. I mean, that down there, if nobody's ever seen it, that atmosphere is something that you just can't believe. Even on practice days, it's like what you figure a tour event was going on. It's just insane. That 16th hole, that par 3 with that arena they've got there, just to hear the roar, that, what you hear on TV compared to being there and seeing, is such a different feeling.
Best 2 or 3 golf courses you've ever had the pleasure of playing, and what did you love about the architecture of those courses?
Well, I grew up in California, so I played PV, where the ladies play on the tour there. But probably one of my favorite courses isn't on tour, was in Dominican Republic, the Teeth of the Dog. Just being there on the ocean for 9 holes and being up inland for the other 9 holes, just the change of the scenery and just the beauty of the ocean breeze, and actually hitting off the tee box and having the water smashed up against the rocks and the mist coming over your body, which is sensational. I did actually get a chance to play Riviera at one point in time in my youth, which is a phenomenal golf course as well. But one thing I do miss is the courses in California, more hilly golf courses. That's where I grew up on. That's what I played. Living in Florida now, everything's pretty flat, so it's kind of boring. And believe me, as much as I travel, I'd love to play more, but I just don't really have the opportunity to play. I mean, I could play every week if I wanted to. A lot of reps do go out and play on a Monday, but, I usually travel in on a Monday. So after traveling, working all day, the last thing I want to do is go out and hit a golf ball.
Well, continued success with everything, and thanks for partnering with us at Sub 70. We're proud to put those putter grips on our putters. So keep up the great work. Like I said, we love the association with you. And thanks for your time today, man. It's such an interesting story. And I know the hard work and what it's taken for you to get it to where it is. And I have the utmost respect for you and your company and what you're doing. It's a really interesting story. And I love seeing people succeed, and you're living the dream with that stuff. So we could not be more proud to have the association with you.
Well, Jason, I'm really honored and feel very privileged to be here with you today. I'm just so happy working together with you, and I just see a lot of success for us in the future because, the Garsen brand is growing more and more every day. The distribution worldwide is just getting really to the point where it's, beyond belief. You dream of these days, but when they actually happen, it's a whole nother feeling. I'm sure you know that as well as I do.
We just keep grinding it up, right? Grinding it up one at a time, right? That's what we're doing.
It's, I don't listen to little voices in my head anymore. The only voice I listen to is myself. Tell myself, you can do this.
You can do it. Exactly. The struggle is the grind, or the struggle is half the fun, right? Because it shouldn't be easy, and it's not easy. But I always tell people I'm the luckiest person in the face of the earth that I get to do this every day for a living. Not only run the golf company at Sub 70 and do all that, but even to have these really interesting conversations. I love doing this. It's been so much fun to get to do this stuff. So I'm sure you feel the same way. So we'll keep plugging at it.
Exactly. Right. It's incredible. I love the journey.
Exactly. Hey, Bernie, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Jason, my pleasure.